How's your week been, Dan?
Yes.
What's going on with you?
As always, lots of introspection, lots of, like, who am I being? What am I creating? Why am I doing this? Like, that's been the why question has been coming up a lot more. Um, what am I trying to get at? Like, what's the end goal? What's the energy behind this? And, I always have these realizations, and then like I have another realization 2 days later, and it's canceling out the last realization, or or seemingly like reading on paper it looks like, oh no, you went back from there, but it's like, no, it's just like a little offshoot or more clarification in a different way. And that's been a lot of this week of just, why am I doing the things I'm doing? And you know is it I hate to use the term, is it serving me, because I feel like it's such a, like, it's a very overused term, and I think it's like an improperly used term a lot of times. Like, people are like, this job isn't serving me anymore. I'm like, it kind of is right now. Like, it's paying your bills. Like, you know.
Serving an older part of you, right?
Yeah, or it is serving an aspect of you, but it's like,
Yeah.
I just want to be by the beach and drink mai tais, and it's like, yeah, no, I get that, but that's also not really what you want to do. That's just like an escape for what you want to do right now, and you think that's what you really want to do because your Instagram influencer you're following is posting that stuff, but they're posting that stuff because they think you want to see that, because that's a life you actually want to live, when really it's just an escape. So kind of a deep rabbit hole around that.
Love it.
And I'm not saying that like people don't want to live on a beach and drink mai tais, but they're thinking that that's the end goal. They're thinking that that is, no, what they like about that picture is they like what Laura, you brought up earlier, is freedom, right? When you see someone doing that, it symbolizes freedom. It symbolizes, wow, you have enough money and time to be able to go do this, right?
Yes.
Like, that's a lifestyle you're able to live. So just getting really clear on that for me, of like freedom. So I have my map and I have my compass that I set at the beginning of this year. And so like my compass has authenticity, play, and path of least resistance, as that is my wayfinder. It's like, that's how I get to where I want to go, is
Yeah.
through play, through authenticity, and through path of least resistance. And then my map is where I actually want to go. And my map is adventure, impact, and freedom. So those are my three destinations, if you will.
Oh, I
But
like that.
it's I'm really focused on living my way, like living my life through way of being versus achievements and success and that type of thing. And so my definition of success for a long time, it's there's a lot of them. Like, I really like the Winston Churchill, or at least it's accredited to him, but it's like, success is moving from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
Yes.
So that's a good one. But what I found is, like, when I can focus on, I'm doing this because I want to do it, not because someone else is telling me I should want to do this.
Yes.
Like the standards talk we had, Brian, yesterday, or Tuesday, with the case study, right? Like, living by someone else's standards. Like, my parents said I should be, my mom always wanted me to be an eye doctor, right? Like, she's like, that is a well-paying, safe profession, and everyone's always going to need eye doctors, and they're respected, and they're this. And I just remember being like, wow, I would probably kill myself if that's what the profession was. And no shade on the eye doctor community or the optometrist community, but
It's interesting that came up.
I know. I was gonna say, yeah.
but for me, it was just a very, like, yeah, that's amazing. And like, if I was super into that and I was super geeked out on all of those things, like, I would go for it, but I'm not. And, just referencing that with like, my mom's been very open with standards. Like, she was very anti me joining the military. When I was born, she clipped out this article about a mom saying she'd never let her kid join the military. It was like a Vietnam style, like, why would I have my kid fighting for, a war for some politicians, corporate gains type thing. And then, as I was growing up, I was like really into wanting to be in the military. That was always like a side theme that I had. And, but she never would stop me. Right. So like when I was applying to all the different academies, like the Air Force Academy, Coast Guard Academy, Naval Academy, like she was never against it. She always supported me. So I'm very fortunate to have that background where she had standards, but like she never would impose that on me. And so even with that though, like there's ones you pick up, right? There's unconscious ones that even though they didn't push it on me, I still got. So I'm just been unraveling some of those and really focused on, is this like the definition of success for me is, am I living by my standards or am I living by life that as dictated by me, or am I living a life that society's telling me I should live or my parents are telling me to live? So that's kind of a lot around that and just refocusing. Am I still doing that? Am I not doing that? How am I doing that?
Yeah.
Way of being versus achievement has really been, for me, the I would say the pathway.
Yeah.
Nice.
Are you questioning the gym that you created at all? Or
Every day.
Like whether you want to be doing, because I know the last few times we talked about the courses that you could take, the credits or whatever you were gonna do, helicopter school or get into video and filming and recording all that stuff. Are you at a cusp or change or transition right now where you're like, maybe I just drop the gym and I start making? Where are you at? Where's this budding up for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of it are my daily actions in alignment with my way of being that I want to be, right? Like,
yeah.
That's to kind of to explain this as clearly as I can, and I'm still figuring it out, so it's not fully cemented. The gyms are definitely one of those things that, because they provide a stress in my life, because, in its current state, not as much benefit as pain. Now I'm at kind of an equilibrium with that. Like we've gotten pretty much out of the pain, and now it's just like minor annoyances. But also, like, is this something I want to be doing with my life? I remember asking a buddy of mine, hey, if you were to have 250K just coming into you every year for the rest of your life, right? Work for inflation, blah, 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 but just like that sum of money, what would you do with your life? And then he pitched that same question to me, and I pitch that question to people a lot of times, like, but I have always like a nebulous idea of what I would be doing, but it's never like, I've never sat down and like, I shouldn't say never, but in the last 5 years, I haven't sat down and really write what that looks like. So I did, just maybe about 4 months ago. And I was like, okay, so if I didn't have the gyms, like I just like hit a reset button, everything was gone, and then like 250K was coming into me every year. What would I create from here forward? I was like, oh, I'd like create a community of people who got together and would work out and be into like learning how to work their mindset and their spiritual aspects, and we'd be doing adventures together for growth and transformation, and we'd be maybe doing some retreats that would be like embodying all those things. And we'd have skill acquisition. We'd learn to ride horses, and we'd learn to, you know, shoot bows and arrows, and we'd like do these really fun things. And people who really were into, you know, certain pathways could go further down that pathway so they could be living like their fullest life and feel really in this rich, supportive community that's always growing and challenging themselves and challenging each other and supporting each other and all of that. And I was like, oh, so I do exactly what the fuck I started out doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the same. So it answers it. You do it.
That like the current situation doesn't quite look like that. Currently, it looks like 2 CrossFit gyms where 90% of the people are there just to work out, and they like the community aspect. They like to go on hikes together, but we haven't injected enough of the mindset, spirituality, like that piece of it, or adventure for transformation specifically, not just adventure for adventure's sake. And that, like, there's 10% of our community at both gyms that are balls deep in that, and they love it, and they're just like, they want more of it. And those are the people I've been spending more time with virtually. You know, those are the ones I have phone calls every week with, and, you know, messaging and just like figuring out how do we get to the next step? How do we, like, you guys all got the message we were trying to convey.
Yeah.
We don't have any like standardization for it, you know, like other than you come in, you do this programming, you get better at it. We do community events, but we don't have, like, that was one reason why Brian first came in, was like, hey, how do we get some mindset in here? Something that's formal. And just never really took hold, never really, you know. So anyway, long story long, that's, I've created what I've created, but it would just look different, or it would be the next evolution. Like, it's ready for its next evolution. And this is where, on the tactical level, I'm not sure, does it look like the gyms are the fitness portion of this? And let's say, you know, some other mindset piece, some inevitable you, like maybe that's a different piece of it. Maybe, you know, there's a different spiritual aspect to it. Maybe there's a different adventure aspect to it. Like that, I'm not losing sleep over figuring out what it looks like. I'm just trying to live into the way of being in the essence that got all of the 10% of the people super jazzed. What's going to come from there? What's the next inspiration that'll lead to the next action?
Like a culminating challenge experience or something, where this 10% of the community gets together and there's a series of events that you string together into a culminating long trip where you just take them out.
Yeah. Well, and this is, so here's the thing. It's like, I'm not trying to figure out what it is. At the same time, I think I need to step into my beingness harder, if that makes sense. But like, I've been doing this, and when I'm around those people, I'm in my full authenticity. I'm in my full power, and like, we're all, you know, creating together, and that's really what I want to continue doing. I felt like I haven't been doing that at the next level. It's like the only people I do it with are the people that I talk to.
Is it harder to be that guy being in Hawaii?
Both yes and no. It's been easier with my community back in Denver to be that guy. It's harder here in the community with the people here. I feel like we're just at different, like,
you haven't found your tribe there yet, really.
At different wavelengths. There's a group. They're the ones that the whole San Pedro experience happened with, and there's people. I know they're here. It's just a matter of like, I haven't quite connected with them, and I'm also not trying to force connection with it. Like, this is the whole thing. Like, I'm trying not to do more. I'm not trying to.
It's like, I think of Paul Rudd doing the pop-up when he goes,
Yes.
Pop up. He's like, no, you're trying too hard. Just pop up. Just do it. But what if you just like, if you led into the fact of like, I'm listening to you talk and I'm just reflecting this back, so you can be like, Laura, shh. But no. As you're describing it, it's like there's this natural magnetism that's happening with these people who are naturally attracted to the things that you're saying and the enthusiasm and these concepts and this vision that you have, that you're not formalizing and making this vision something like, I'm putting it on a flyer and on this day we're doing this to accumulate, right? But there's this vision that's coming out and you're having this magnetism with these people and they're coming. So what if you just took the next step or challenge it for yourself, not like making a poster or anything, but just throw them all in a group chat and say, hey, just wanted to put it out there that I think we should all go on an overnight trip at this spot, and let's we could do some paddleboarding, or we can do this, that, or the other, just get some food together and hang out. Like it's that time of, let's bring people together, or using like a holiday and say, hey, let's go to this event together and hang out. But it's taking that magnetism and that group that you have and giving them a place to go and do something together. So it creates the opportunity for more of these conversations to happen. And you're leading with the sense of, I just want to be around this, kind of like we created this space, right? We didn't have like a setup of, we had sort of ideas, but it's like, we're just coming together because we all like talking and sharing with what we have. And it's like birthing ideas. And then we walk away and we're like, oh my gosh, it's literally, so it's just like, we created a spot Thursdays at 1:00. Thank you, Brian, for doing that. But it gets pumped out there and we have it. But what if you had that action where you just, as a challenge for yourself, right in this moment, from what you're saying, is to, let me just see what it's like to throw together a little activity for us to hang out and grab food afterwards or whatever.
Yeah.
Super, super casual. Nothing that has to be anything beyond this, but give you an opportunity to.
Just to kind of give you an example, like this group, what they've been doing now is like, they've been meeting every Wednesday night to work towards a psychedelic journey together. And so now November 4th and 5th, there's like 12 of them. They rented this Airbnb. They're going there. They have like Ryan's actually going to be the sitter, so it's like these things are happening.
Yeah.
Me being in Hawaii, that's one thing that is like a little bit harder. And, it's like, well, for the next one, I have an amazing space for you guys to come to, and, great land and all that stuff. It's funny because there's really no issue, right? Like I have no major needs that I need to fulfill right now. Like, in fact, we're doing really well for a lot of crazy universal reasons financially, like just like our kids' daycare, right? Like it's $1,000 a month it was $1,000 a month per kid, but starting August, McKinley was in kindergarten, so that was $1,000 less a month we had to pay. And then they decided to, like, they got a bunch of funding from like COVID, and I'm just going to keep saying COVID dollars because they attribute it to these like relief funds and stuff, but it's half price for this whole year. So for the whole year, it's only $500 a month for our one kid. So that was a $1,500 swing in its expenses that went in the complete opposite direction by no means of what we planned on happening. And then Ashley got a promotion, which she'd been, working for the last like 7 years. And we didn't think it was going to be a huge financial promotion. We thought it was just going to be like status.
A title. Yeah.
And like a little bit of a bump, just because she was in her last grade for so long that like her pay had gone up. And we just found out it's actually going to be like, we thought it was going to be extra like $50 a month or something. And it's like an extra $400 a month. So it's from the financial standpoint, and then the gyms are better. So I'm able to pay myself a little bit more from them, so it's like all of these little pieces that I used to be worried about, we were stressed about, and then we just fucking chilled out about for the last couple months. And when we chilled out about it, like all of this financial rush came in. So really the only urgency, the only like, I want to make something happen is my own ego feeling like I'm fucking, I'm at my almost, I would say my point in life is 50, but like almost 40. And so that's like, all right, what am I doing? What am I thinking of myself? Like, I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm not bringing in that much financial dollars, but then realizing like, oh, except that we have transformed the lives of fucking thousands of people. And we've made these friends and people have gotten married through the gym and people like they're the goddaughter of my godmother of my daughter is a gym member, and there's these amazing relationships and like people like that were going to commit suicide now not committing suicide and have these awesome jobs and they're like super happy about it. And like I have to remind myself that it's not the $600 or $800 or $1,000 coming in a month to my bank account that's my value. It's like, oh no, this is what we created. Like we created this. So just the constant reminder of that and the little shift of ego, because the ego is like, but all these other people are doing this and I'm not a successful business owner if I'm not paying myself more. And it's like, sure, that's someone else's paradigm. Like that's one that I know I could care less about in here, but here I care a lot about. And how can I influence other people and help them to do the things that they want to do? If they're like, yeah, but your wife just supports you, you know, like you're only making $1,000 a month. It's like, yeah, it's hard to like, I can't reconcile that inside. And that's like, you talk about being in alignment.
Yeah. Have you heard people say that, or is that something that you perceive or think that they are?
A little of both. There's been hints at it here and there. Mm-hmm. And like, it's mostly in my head. And then, yeah, it's people who have mentioned things, you know, like Garrett and Ryan would say stuff like, well, you know, the only reason we're able to do this is because you have a wife supporting us. We don't have to pay you. It's like, yes. And if I didn't have that, like, well, shit, if I didn't have that, like, I'd be working there. I'd be there all the time. I would have created all these other things for myself. Like, there's a perception that we think our circumstances, the perception is we didn't create our circumstances.
Right.
But we created our circumstances.
Yes.
You know, I didn't get lucky and meet my wife. It's like I fucking created that rendezvous.
Right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We all created. And if she wasn't around, I would create it again. It's the whole thermostat thing that we talked about. You know, it's why Donald Trump he's been a billionaire like 4 times and lost it all fucking 3 times. Like, because he can't tolerate not being at that state.
Right.
Like, you're not homeless and jobless and, you know, penniless. Like, you always have friends. You always have people to go to. You always have, like, you're not, we have this idea that we're going to be psychotic on the street, you know, with nothing. And it's like, that's not true. Like you wouldn't create that for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you wanted to.
I like what you were speaking to in terms of you're actively engaged in the creation of what you're surrounded by, right? Like everything that you see and touch, you've had an active part. And it's the same thing you were talking about with the accident. It's like, it takes 2 parts, but when we understand that, it takes away, because what I hear you expressing is like that fear. And I wonder if it's to a societal pressure or theme that, like, in my head, I'm sitting here going, what does it matter if she is supporting and you're helping? So, you know, like, where is that coming from? And, you know, these little comments that people are saying and they're doing it haphazardly, but for you internally, is there an internal pressure in terms of, because I'm this, I should, you know, is there a battle in old programming or a way of the way things are, right? Because you know how many women, I was just with Kristen last night, and she's like, had to always, like, it was like she was looking for a validation or just an excuse of, I'm not working. I just sit at home and I haven't been working for, she got married to Sloan, stopped working as an esthetician, and now she has a daughter and she picks her daughter up and she does all the correspondence for the school and stuff like this. But it was like she had to justify that she wasn't working with what she was doing as a parent. And it was just interesting to hear it because she needed to air it all out, like in terms of, and I should start a business. I should be doing this. And I should, I'm going, we should the shit out of ourselves and rob ourselves of the joy of what we've actively had a practice in creating, which, innately brings us joy. But because we have this comparison or this program that we're trying to meet or whatever is the norm out there. And to be honest with you, the norm is flip-flopping and breaking open and crashing down altogether, which I celebrate every single day in lots of ways. It's very unsettling for people, and I get it. And they're all scared. They want to hold on to the structure of the burning building, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, this is like an opportunity because we are our creators. Like, we are literally came into this planet. We came out as creators and we will leave creators. But when we lose sight of that, because we have to follow this structure or something, and now that structure is changing and shifting and combating, and people are coming out and starting to challenge norms in a way, it's like, oh, everybody's getting scared. And it's like, oh, and these supposeds and these things and these pressures that we put on ourselves. It's just interesting, right? When you think about it and where that comes from. And as I was listening to you, I'm going, who fucking cares? If you didn't have a job and you were a stay-at-home dad and you were going to these gyms as a volunteer and didn't even make a profit or didn't even own it, but that's what you wanted to do with your free time, and that was a dynamic. Are you happy? Are you bringing joy to the world? Are you bringing service to, are you an active part in a community and bringing love? Then that's all that matters, and of course that's a response from me projected out there, but it's good and healthy to talk about that pressure that exists, because I know I myself experience it too. I'm a single woman that's 41, and you know how many people I can sit there and go, you should have kids. How come you're not married? How come you're what? There's a man out there for you. I'm like, what if it's a woman? Or what if it's a trans? Or what if I end up with a fucking horse? Not sexually, but just like, that's all I want. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, what? And then I get this like feeling, I'm comfortable now because at this stage of the game, nobody really asks me unless they're new and they're curious and they want to know, but I'm very firm in going. Kristen's daughter goes, LG, do you ever want kids? And I go, nope. She goes, whoa, you said that really fast. And I go, yeah, it's a firm, it's like that was my life choice. I worked with, but then I have this explanation that comes out. Like, I just want to be like, oh. Yeah. Just like I go to a store and I choose like a chocolate donut or a piece of cheese, like it's the same thing. No, like I don't want this, I want this. And that's how it be. But there's this justification that comes behind it. So it's just interesting.
Always. Landmark, there's this one, it's a really big reveal after, I think, the third night or second night of the first course that you go through. And it's about choice versus decision, or choice versus decision is really what it is. And so it's you choose something because you choose it. That's it. Right? So it's like,
just a choice. Yeah.
People come on stage and they're like, chocolate or vanilla, choose. They're like, vanilla. Why'd you choose vanilla? Well, chocolate's not that good and I really like vanilla. It's like, that's a reason. That's not a choice. It's a decision you made because of reasoning. And they're their definitions of decision versus choice is different than a lot of other people's decision versus choice. But they have the reason they have the distinction is because choice is powerful. Like our friends who lost their 4-year-old daughter to cancer were there with us, and they got on the stage and they were like, I chose Addie's death. Right? Like, super powerful. Everyone in the room fucking bursting in tears. Like, everyone was crying. Like, it was really a powerful moment. And whether that still sticks with her or not, I'm not sure. But the concept is you're choosing what happens to you in your life. Because if you don't, now you're a victim to it. Now you're not a creator. Now you're not the author of your life, you're the manager of your circumstances. Well, this happened to me and that happened to me. I had no, it's like on a spiritual level, you and your daughter chose each other before you came down here. This was the plan, right? That was an exit strategy. This was a big moment for your spiritual growth and your soul growth. And the child had a spiritual and soul growth as well. And we'll come back and probably is already back here, right? Like, we don't know. But it's one of those things where it's like when you can choose and you have that power of choice, it is fucking powerful.
Yes.
But then we want to say why we chose it and why we're doing this. And, oh, here's the justification. That's exhausting.
Yeah. It's exhausting, but it also helps reassure and we validate ourselves in it. Like, am I thinking, like when you start to elicit that doubt or something, but I feel like the reasonings help in the choice making.
They can, right?
Yeah.
Like they can help in terms of, this isn't to say that like, you just listen to your gut and choose, It's like,
yeah.
First off, you need to know what your gut sounds like. And most people don't. Most people think they're like, oh, I went with my gut on this. I'm like, your gut would have never fucking told you to do that. It's not a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like my mom, my dad died a long time ago, but when she finally remarried, it was like 20 years later. This guy basically talked a big game and was really, happy and cheery and all those things. And then basically just wanted a green card. That was kind of like the end of it. And, after, 2 years of marriage, they ended up getting divorced and it was pretty miserable. But she took away from it as like, oh, I think the lesson God's teaching me is not to trust everyone and to be, guarded about who you let into your life. And I'm like, just listen to yourself say that out loud. You really think God would tell you to not trust other people? like
Yeah.
That is the fucking lesson that you think that you're supposed to be getting out of this? It's like, no, man, that is not at all the lesson.
Yeah.
That would never be a thing you're being told.
Yeah.
What was the distinction between choice and decision? Was that just choice is the more empowering version? Decision's more based on, or I have to decide between.
Yeah.
Based on reason. Well, I did it because.
Gotcha.
Well, if you say I did this because of something, that means something else decided it for you. You didn't powerfully make that choice. I chose it because I chose it.
Right.
Whereas, we chose the house because the pricing was right and the location was good. And it's not saying that those reasons are invalid. But if I say that's the reason I chose the house, it's like, no, not my fault. It was just good price and it was good market timing. And it's like, these are the deep things that are hard to really grasp. Because it's
like, I love this location. I love how this house makes me feel. I can see, bringing up my family in this house. I can see us 10 years, like those kind of more powerful.
Yeah, still reasons though. Still reasons. So this distinction specifically, take it out of the context of law of attraction, take it out of the context of gratitude and appreciation, just the power of choice, right? Like you are either the master or the victim, but you can't be the same at the same time, right? You can't be both.
Yeah.
And in this, I chose this because I chose this.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yeah. It's like, it's the full level of responsibility. You're the driver. You're the one who, it's that full total responsibility. Because when we have decisions and we're making them with reasons, then we take the responsibility. It's not solely on us. There's other factors that wield it.
You
and I love that
I made this choice.
Yeah.
Right? Any smart person would have made the same choice I made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. You're taking it away from your whole thing. I love that because with kids, we worked with choice theory, and it's super powerful with them because that's what they're seeking is power control anyways. And that's the combat between an adult and a child is they know better, they're structuring the whole thing, so they are taking away that power. And really, for a kid to flourish in their experience is for them to emphasize they're in the driver's seat, because then it'll lessen the friction, that'll lessen that I'm going to do the opposite of what you say. So when you're doing choice theory with kids, it's often you want them to recognize they are the driver of their experience, and how are they actively engaged in those choices that they're making, and understanding. I mean, you do a little bit of the why to get them to connect to that in those early stages. But I mean, if you think of a kid, how instinctively they go to, I'm gonna run to the slide because I want to go down the slide. There's no, like it's just, I'm gravitating.
We put reasons on that. We're the ones that beat that shit out of them. You don't want to go down the slide because it's wet, and then your pants are going to be wet the rest of the day.
And then all of a sudden, they get out of their sails, and they're like, "What? Aw, that changes everything for them."
Right, but then they grow up, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't go down that slide because it's wet, and I don't want to walk around with wet pants." It's like, man, now you've lost the power in your life. Now you're just living based on that's. I mean, that's old programming, right? It's living by default versus by living by power. Like, no, you know what? The cause and effect is still there. You go down the side with wet pants, now you have wet pants, but then you make the next choice, and you make the next choice, and you make the next choice.
Yeah, like you change your pants, or you bring an extra pair of pants next time because you're like, screw it, I don't mind being wet for a second. Like, there's so many different, It is interesting though, and then we end up impacting people based on our opinions of their choices and imposing that. Much like the people that were saying it to you, if it wasn't for your wife doing whatever, blah, 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 we wouldn't. That's like an imposing of their
and
opinion
it strikes
on your choice.
Yeah, and it strikes the chords of my core wounds that I already have, right? Like, one of my big ones is I need to do enough to show my worth, or like worthiness and enoughness are, they're similar in a lot of ways, and there's subtle differences, but there is I have to do enough. So I am enough. So I'm loved. Like, if I'm not, I've never had a problem with my wife making more money than me for even a moment. Like, I'm just like, fuck yeah, you love doing that, go for it.
Yeah.
What I have a problem with is me not bringing enough to the table in other ways, or from a societal view, or that's where I get really like, like, am I doing enough for this family? Am I bringing enough? Am I doing enough for the gyms? I should be doing more. I should have sent a newsletter before this. I shouldn't go surfing right after this meeting. I should send that newsletter out. And it's like, why? Like, well, I'm doing it so that I can show my worth, and that I'm enough, and I'm doing enough, right? So I can earn my paycheck. It's like, you love me, right?
Yeah. Also, that's an old programming too that I've been facing. As you were saying that, Dan, it's like, even today, we'll take today as an example. I was like, oh my gosh, I should be doing this right now. I should get on and start looking. And I checked in with myself, and I go, is that the attitude? Because this is law of attraction, right? Is that the attitude? If I go in and start doing this and forcibly going into this, I'm like, because any client I've had come that signs on, it's because I'm at this space of openness. I go, is this the attitude? And then I just ask myself, what do I do to change my attitude? And I go, I need movement. And I say, what kind of movement do I need? It's like, I want to go for a bike ride. Oh, but it's raining out. I go, fuck that noise. Rain never stopped you. It feels really good because you're going to be moving your body. It's going to be cooler off than having the sun beating down. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then I, sure enough, get all my stuff together and I start gearing it. But I feel like I'm having resistance because it's that heavy. I should be sitting down in front of the computer right now. I'm like, that computer is going to still be here. Like, I had to coach myself going, it is going to be here when I get back. And in fact, I'm going to be way more fired up when I come back afterwards. And then as I go downstairs, that's when I ran into my landlord. I'm coming out the door and he starts telling me about this David Byrne thing. I'm like, sweet, I got a location I'm going to bike around to and check things out and explore. And all of a sudden I was in this like open space of exploration, new ideas, having fun, chose a new song that I just found last week, played that on my air, this is the whole thing. And I was like, shifted everything. And the shoulds disappeared. They melted away, even though it was raining, and I chose a cotton shirt, and I know cold cotton kills, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, Doesn't matter. I'm going to be home in about 20 minutes and I'm going to put on a new sweatshirt of coziness and I don't care. And then I was like, oh, and then I've got this thing and I've got to make sure I look like, you know, at least professional when talking to these guys. I was like, fuck that noise. I am professional because everything I've been doing up to this very point is all about what I've been doing. So it was just like this kind of, it was interesting watching this. Like I had these little hurdles that I kept meeting. And anytime I felt a should, I sat there and I questioned it. And I go, why? Who's saying should? I'm going, who's the, like, what's going on right now? Like, where is this coming from? So it was like, nice evolution into this seat here today. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've just perfectly articulated the place I've been in for a long time, really intensely recently, but like this fucking voice that it's like the difference between that 4-year-old that you're talking about, and Bill uses that an analogy all the time, right? The raw 4-year-old you, like, before the programming is set in, they're just, I want to go do that, and I hate that, and now I'm crying, and now I'm sleeping like it, and now like they're just, there's no fucking chatter going, there's no rationalization, there's no decision making, there's no like those thoughts. Where does that voice come from? You know, and I ponder on this one a lot, like the difference between intuition and instinct, you know, like I think instinct is more of a programmed thing. And yeah, some of it's very old, like generational, like if I see a snake, I get scared, like that's an instinct, right?
Yeah.
Or like if I decide to go do something, like get a glass of water, is that my instinct? Because is that my, you know, like, I don't know if this is making sense, but like there's a there's like a pull or something driving that is an intuition. But I feel like, especially recent, like trying to decipher how much of this was just implanted into my head, programmed in because it was my parents, it's because Bill, it's because it's something I used to like, but now I don't. Like how much of that is driving unconsciously versus, oh, this is like source energy or God or whatever you want to call it, like saying, go here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you guys experience that challenge of deciphering, but it's kind of the place I've been in for a while.
Yes. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
There's a book I'm reading right now. It's Course in Miracles. It's a tome, man.
Yeah.
It's really deep and heady and like,
that's a lot.
It's a lot. But one of the things they said the other day, and it's something that I've had this, you know, close held theory of like the universe whispers to you, right? Like it's always whispering to you all the time. But the chatter's so loud you can't hear it, right? Yeah. Like, and I think it's a very common one, but the way they said it in here, they're like, child, you're asleep. And if you want to wake a sleeping child, do you go, hey, wake up, right? Or are you gently, hey, how do you do this? Maybe
come on.
It's a very gentle awakening. And they were saying like, look, we're incarnated here and we're asleep. And now the term they use is Holy Spirit in this book, but it's the universal energy, right? It's the universe whispering these things to you of like, hey, wake up, right? Wake up. Yeah. And when you think about it in terms of the spiritual awakening, it's like, oh yeah. So chatter comes down, you hear that volume tick up higher, and then you get a pigeon who flies into your car.
That's what I was just thinking of that. I was like, oh, those moments, like, no, where it's like a universal that's the universe is intervening with Brian.
Yeah, and then you have the interpretation of it that comes.
Yeah.
It comes quicker and quicker and quicker.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's wild. It's crazy that you're saying it like this because I think, so Sunday hiking in Fort Collins, went to the reservoir there with a friend. And then she and I afterwards were like, you know, everything's based on like, go on the phone, let's look this up. What kind of food do you want? Google the type of food, see if they're open. And, of course, the first one we came to, it was like, oh yeah, we were all excited. They closed at 3. It was Lucille's. So like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, let's listen to our guts and our stomachs. I'm like, let's play around with what kind of foods you want to dance around with. And I was like, okay, let's like check it out. And we both of us looked at each other and go, oysters. I was like, yes. But then it was like, let's look what's in the area. Oh, this place doesn't open for another 30 minutes. That means we got to do this, blah, blah, blah. Well, sure enough, we start driving downtown Fort Collins, and this is the first time we've like hung out there together to like the whole thing, get the parking, start walking. And we're like, oh, the first place we go to is this French bistro that we're like, oh, let's just kick it here until maybe the other place opens up. We look at the menu and we're like, no, we don't want this. And then we're like, let's just follow the sun. Because I was like, ooh, that area looks cool over there. And we're no longer looking at our phone or maps or times or anything. We put it away and we're just like, let's go where the sun is. And I was like, oh, let's look at this menu. And then she goes, what's down there? And I go, oh, the blue awnings and the umbrellas. And we're sitting there and I went to pull up my phone to Google what it was. And she goes, let's walk. So I put my phone down and go, I don't even know what I'm doing. So we start walking. It's an oyster place. It was the same place we were walking down that we forgot about. And I'm going, I had this moment where I just screeched and I hugged her. I go, I love this kind of shit. I go, literally, even without the phone, we would have found it and been excited and been like, this is where we're headed. We're going to go get one drink and an app, and then we're going to come right back here. We're going to sit at this table, and that's what we want. And we were all excited. Like, we were clapping like little kids. Like, we just, like, looped arms, and we went right back to the place, got our drinks, and we were all excited. So it was just, like, following that energy. But it was interesting that we had said the idea in the car parked in front of the place that was closed. And then once we dropped it, but we gradually like just found it without having to Google it. And we ended up there. And it was just like this nice intervention. Awesome. Shortly before that, as we were parking the car though, she looked in and she was like, it's 2:22, and had this like angel moment. Cause anytime it's 11:11, 1:11, 2:22, like all the stuff, she'll do this little motion with her hands and pray and be like, oh, I go, that's what it was. We were on the right track. Like we kept finding it. And like, you saw the time at that time and all these things. So it was just like this universal thing, but it was interesting because regardless of any of those details or any of it, it was just that cool spark and rise of energy that didn't come from any force or any plan or anything. And it just like naturally, it was fun. But I said it right in that moment. I go, this is my favorite part of the day, next to a lot of the other favorite parts. Because she goes, what about when you decided to go into the water? I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that already. Like, this moment trumped that moment, but that was also fun. But it's like those little moments occur more, I feel like, when I'm tapped into universe, like spirit, universe. It's in a way of not forcibly doing it, and it's just there. There's no resistance. There's no, I have to. Although I do enjoy manifesting. Like I do enjoy making a plan in my head and going, ooh, I want this. Let's go for it. And like picturing it and happening. I like that stuff. But that also is coming from a space of creative energy and tapped into source energy too.
Those weren't diametrically opposed, right? Yeah. Thing, and Brian, I realized the other day, I wanted to clarify this with you. You know how I was talking about, I was like, you know what you and Ryan like to do a lot of is see a really clear intent picture of what you want. And like, oh, you just need to get clarity around it. Picture this really clear thing, right? Why I was disagreeing in that moment and why I would disagree, let's say for you right now specifically, is to the point of Abraham where they talk about if that subject has too much negativity on it, right? Mm-hmm. You're creating it from a place of lack.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to be clear on what that manifestation is, right? I want this and I want it to look like this. The energy you're putting into it is like, I don't have that yet.
Right.
From Laura's point, if you're in a playful mood and you're in this space of like, oh, what do I want to create? Ooh, I would love to create, this thing that looks like this and it has this. Oh yeah, that'll be really fun.
Yeah.
With energy, there's no lack energy there. There's just positive creation energy there.
Yeah.
And then following or playing. Yeah, and I completely agree. And the adventure component, like of seeing, like exploring that way to see where it leads you. And it's just how Abraham Hicks talks about it all the time. Like start general, just start like
Small, yeah.
be
Broad.
be broad, and then you can hone in or be led to that thing, because oftentimes, probably all the time, right, it's going to be way better than you could even imagine it in the first place, especially if there is like lack associated to it, because like you can't really create from that place, because, well, A, it's a manifestation for, because you're focusing on the things you don't like, and B, it's like the place that you're trying to imagine won't necessarily be the solution, or like the thing that's going to reveal itself is going to be way better to get you out of that place you're at. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, like picturing winning the lottery versus picturing, you know, there are kind of two things I'm trying to illustrate here. You can picture winning the lottery if it's from that place of abundance, and then it might not be winning the lottery. It might be, you know, a Nigerian prince who leaves you millions of dollars, and it's actually real this time, right? But yeah, it might not come in the way that you picture, and then sometimes it does, and it's like, wow, this is the. I just rewatched The Secret the other day. I was tired of like I don't love that movie. It's a little cheesy for me, but
Yeah.
there's just so much garbage on TV, and I was in such a negative headspace, and I just kept seeing and watching like more negative shows that put me in a fucking bad mood. So I rewatched that, and John Azaroff was saying how he did these vision boards, and he just like had them in a box somewhere, and they were in this new house, and his kid's like, "Oh, what's in this box?" And he's like, "Oh, it's my vision boards." And, "Oh, what's that?" He's like, "Oh, let me show you." And he pulled it out, and like the picture of the house he wanted to live in was the house they were just moving into.
Right.
Not even the same look.
The exact house. Yeah.
He'd forgotten all about it, 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that that is not powerful.
Yeah.
It just needs to be like from Laura, it's got to be from playful, from that adventure unfolding, like play.
Well, why the adventure journey aspect is so important, because like on the flip side, the Jack Canfield story, like he had a very clear request. I want $100,000, right? In the shower. Oh, National Enquirer, no, he's in line at the store, right? National Enquirer, 100,000 subscribers. Oh, if I just sold one book or 100,000 books for $1, right? Then he next day he meets the report. Like, I love that story, because like he didn't know how, he just had something he wanted, and it was like, all right, see where this takes me, right? Like he followed the breadcrumbs to the
right, and it was the path of least resistance, right? Like the universe knows how it's going to be the easiest for you, knowing your current beliefs, knowing how you are, right? Like if your current beliefs were truly that anything can happen to you in any moment, right? Like then you would get $1 million like right here dropping in front of you. But we don't. No matter how hard we believe it, there's something telling us like, I don't really believe that, right? Like it has to work for it. It's got to happen over time, and yeah, but it will show you the easiest way for you to do it.
Right. I think that's an important distinction too, for the like having if you're like rigid and this is how it has to be done, it can only be done this way, and this guru, they did it this way, so they told me I have to do it this way, and that's how I'm going to get there, versus like, no, it can happen any fucking way, any infinite possibility way that if you're open to it, right? Like I guess that's the caveat.
And you can still do it that guru way, and it would just take a lot more effort, and you'll still get the same result. Your just experience of it might not be as ease and joy and fun, and it'll be like, I fucking did it. Whew.
Yeah.
I think it's powerful to say too that when manifestations are put out there, like I want something, like vision boards, it's definitely powerful to say it and to create it. But the other piece of it that I know that they touch on this in The Secret, but I think it's being mapped out more intentionally now that the concept is taking the next step further, and you have to embody it in everything you do. So you have to be willing to look at how you're showing up each moment. And this is like I mean, you don't have to sit there and go, how do I eat my eggs in the morning? Am I eating like a person who makes $100,000? Like, it doesn't have to be that, but I mean, you have to look at how you're showing up every day, the energy you're putting into it, how much of your energy are you putting in towards that? And then if there is resistance, then maybe the vision of what you're throwing out there in manifestation isn't in alignment with you completely, because all of you isn't in forward motion. But I think it's that understanding, and this is why I love coaching, is because taking a look at small action steps, because people can come and say, I want to be here. You know, I started at A and I want to be at Z and I want to do it in 3 months. And I want to, you know, like, okay, great. But you have to be willing to look at all the other little factors and understand that how you're showing up in one facet of your life, you're showing up in, you know, and we take a healthy, honest look at it, because underneath all that, like the programming that we're talking about, old programming, and where is the resistance? Because if you aren't not ready to look at yourself in that way, it's really hard to do the manifestation piece of understanding. So it's like the relationship to self that you have. And again, in turn of looking at that, do you do so with joy and excitement, or are you doing it with resentment and resistance and kind of, because then you're going to be at the stuck place and you're not going to have any movement towards that goal.
Right.
So yeah, it's like a lot of different components, but I like thinking about vision boards and stuff like that, because oftentimes I'll set up stuff for myself, right? But when I sense myself getting in my own way, and that's like when I'm shooting on myself or I'm not matching, and okay, dude, well, you know, you have to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and start your day, because that's when your brain is super, super fired up, and you chose to do whatever last night and have that extra glass of wine. Now you're sleeping in. Well, I'm not going to beat myself up on it, but those were choices you made. So be okay with those choices and keep moving as you go through it, instead of, you know, it's like, it's just being able to align yourself with yourself in that relationship to it, and then the things that you want externally or throughout your own experience, being able to make sure that you're connected to it at all times.
There's actually been really interesting studies done on, what just came to mind was like how they're finding that the most successful athletes don't even set SMART goals for like their performance, or like, and this is outside of professional athletes, but like high achievers, they don't set a SMART goal, because for most, what they find is like they look at this thing, like that person, the gap, like there's all that lack. So it's not very inspiring, and every day it's harder because like, I'm so far away, and you know, whatever else is going through their heads.
Yeah.
Versus they set, I think the term was exploratory goals. So it's like, how far can I run? How fit can I get? How, you know, whatever the thing is, seeing, because that's more exciting, because every day you're feeling the progress that is, you know, infinite, essentially infinite potential. And that's more motivating. It is, I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what the studies has shown.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Not that SMART goals are bad, but
no, yeah, I mean, they can help organize, and there's definitely, they're utilized for sure, but yeah, leading in with joy and taking it step by step like that, and understanding why you're doing it. I think it's the fun factor. It really is. The choice, it's your power of choice that you're doing this, and that you're doing this because internally it's meeting that joy. It's in alignment with what you want.
For sure.
That way of being, like you were saying, Laura, like way of being is so huge. Like if you're doing this from a place of this, right? Like a place of I have to, or shooting on yourself, like that way of being is someone who's not in charge, who's not in control. It's someone who's not doing this. And so it's like, that's who you're being in that moment. Yeah. Well, then you're going to attract more of that.
Right.
And that's your experience versus you choose the way of being of, like, I remember this one time, this person, she's like, I want to be this adventure goddess, right? It's like, cool. You know, so like paint the picture of adventure goddess, right? Like, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Do you reach for a breakfast burrito, or do you make yourself like a protein shake? oh, I would make myself a protein shake, right? Like Adventure Goddess wouldn't eat breakfast burrito, like, oh, okay, cool, got it, right? Like just these little shifts of like when you step into that way of being, I think that's why those RIM sessions are so powerful. It's like you're you're visually and sensorily stepping into that way of being, and from that way of being, you make the choices that a person in that way of being would make.
Yes.
If I'm anxious, I'm going to make choices from an anxious place. I have to do this. I have to get it done. I should be doing this. Well, cool. Then now your way of being is anxiety, and it's yours. Like, have it.
Yeah. This just had me think of a client. I don't know where we're at in time, but I want to get you guys' opinion on what you would say. She opened up and said, so movies she cannot watch without knowing the end. Books she cannot read without knowing the end. And she chooses crime, thriller, mystery, all sorts of things. And it drives people around her in her life crazy. She doesn't spoil it for them, but she always has to do the research and she has to see how it ends, because then she can be prepared. She also finds joy in like that reverse, like looking at Easter eggs, like how the clues are put in along the way to get to that end. And her narrative around it was like, I know that that's really weird and it's in connection with her anxiety. Part of me wanted to challenge her to say, a good thing to step outside your comfort zone would be not to look at it and see what that feels like and what comes up for you to explore. What do you guys think? What's your reaction to all of that? Just in general.
Well, she clearly prefers certainty over uncertainty.
100%.
Uncertainty right now has a half empty connotation.
A big one.
Creates anxiety, right? Like, yep. I'm sure she probably does have anxiety when she starts reading a book and she doesn't know how it ends. Like that probably.
It is. It's right? Really, like, yeah, it's unpleasant for her.
But really like there's certain things I'm sure in her life that she doesn't know how it ends, but she will, I don't know the right word, tolerate or, do okay with it, right?
Well, it's connected to why we started talking in the first place, was because she's had 2 miscarriages, then she had a baby, and then she's now pregnant again, and she's afraid that she's going to lose the baby again. Mm-hmm. And it's things that happen outside of her control and it creates so much suffering, what she's had happen that's out of her control. And if you dive in further, we have 2 parents who got a divorce, and father went back to Brazil and mom stayed here. And then mom got remarried to a guy that wasn't that great. She had a bad relationship with him. And then every time she went to go visit dad in Brazil, like bio dad, he was in a new spot, a new place, and she'd have to establish new friends. So there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of shifting, and there was just a lot of unknown. But so
uncertainty means bad. That's it. Just anything that's uncertain is bad.
The formula.
But that's not always true, right? Like, because the flip side of uncertainty is we need uncertainty. It's a basic human need. We need variety in our life. Like we like surprises. We like uncertainty we like the uncertainty we like. We don't like the uncertainty we don't like, right? Like,
right.
So like, I don't know if there's an example for her to reframe that around times that she was surprised and it was awesome. Like a surprise birthday party or.
Yeah, that's you just hit the nail on the head. It's asking her about positive experiences and situations to get her, like, and pair her in that moment when she brings that up, to pair it with examples of when it's happened and why it was fun or what
yeah, more associations to how uncertainty, or I'd frame it as variety.
Yes.
Right. Like there's the half full side of it too. There's good things that can occur. I have another thought around this, but I want to let Dan, so I want to get my thought clear.
Yeah, no, I think that's, you painted a really solid picture, childhood wise, and even just current experience with the outcomes of progeny. Like that's a hugely traumatic in both ways. When it goes the way you don't want it to go, bad trauma. When it goes the way you want it to go, good trauma, right? Like I call it good trauma, ecstatic experience, whatever you want to call it, right? Like it's kind of a roll of the dice. And it's funny because this is the case study we did. A guy, it was his family, they had 2 miscarriages and then they had a son, but he was so focused on the 2 miscarriages and not the amazing son that they brought into the world that like everything was, I failed. If I do this, I'm going to fail, right? Like I was part of that process. This was the husband, but obviously it's even more emotionalized as the person carrying, you know, the vehicle carrying, like I did something wrong, even if it wasn't in your control, like, yeah, but I chose to get pregnant and I chose this. The power of choice here of like, yes, I chose those things. And the power that comes from one, being responsible for the choices you make in life, right? Not making yourself wrong for it, but pairing that with the fact of what's the weather like going to be tomorrow? You know?
Yeah.
Well, Google's or weather.com says, but hey, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah. We
don't know.
Yeah.
What's, you know, like
an asteroid could hit our planet tomorrow.
Yeah.
100%, right. Like
true story. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of that happening right now out of
this is the point. COVID, right? Like,
yes.
I bought a business 3 months, a gym business in person, massive overhead 3 months before global pandemic. Like the fact is, like, I don't know what's going to happen, right? Oh, are you going to fix this gym? I don't know, right? I'm going to try, but I don't know what the outcome is going to be. In life, we never, like, the answer is always, I don't know. Like, in terms of how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
And when you really get that, there can be a huge sense of peace because there's no certainty anywhere. Life is uncertain. That's like, that is the essence of life, right? We fool ourselves by putting in certainty or putting in controls in place. The control she's putting in movies and books is I get to know the ending. That's the control I get to wield over this. So I do think your approach of like, hey, here's a really safe environment to play around with dealing with uncertainty. Maybe try it here, see how it feels, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like it's an enjoyable, no one's going to get hurt. It's not going to harm anything, but let's, I haven't suggested this for her yet, but I want it for next session because that session ended with, I'm getting her because she just found out she's pregnant. So she's going for her 12-week checkup and she's still afraid that she's going to lose the baby. So I've been giving her action steps of where she's nurturing the spirits and we talk about the other spirits. There was a miscarriage. I said, those spirits had their time. It was a short time, but you know, we made our first couple of sessions was talking about those spirits and that journey. And then Theo is her actual son right now and where he's at on his journey and then where she's at. So a big focus of what we're doing is about her own self-nurturing and her ability to reestablish calm and a sense of security and understanding. Because even when she's at work, she's always afraid she's going to get fired. So I had her write down a list of all the reasons why she wouldn't get fired because she's such a fucking badass. Like it was like her badass list that she has and she'll bring it to work with her and have it there because it combats that thought of if I don't do that, like that nervous energy of like, this is going to happen. Like the rug is going to be pulled out underneath me at any moment. It could happen. And we spend time talking about that and then just creating tools for her to do. So she's doing a lot of nurturing with talking to the spirit that she's in and double checking all the things that she's doing for her health and wellness, that she's, you know, all the things that she can and do to wield this positive experience, but enjoying it like in the moment, being able to talk to herself like that. She goes, I don't know if I can talk out loud to myself because she won't journal. So we do lists. She will not journal. And she goes, I don't know if I can talk to myself.
That's too uncertain.
Yes, exactly. And I go, what? And she goes, what's the purpose of it? You're like, what would I sit down? So I want to give her prompts to get her to start answering specific questions because she can't just sit down and journal. And then having her speak out loud in terms of self-love and value and gratitude to get her into that mindset of all the things that are going well, like love the things that are happening. And she goes, well, I can't say it out loud to myself. I said, say it to Theo. Like, your son is hearing all this. So if you're saying this to him, he's going to embrace this. And I go, and your spirit, spirit's going to be saying this. That's inside you. Like the whole thing. It's like, it's not just for you. It's for everything around you. Even your cells, like millions and billions of them are all hearing the messages that you're saying. So
I got a couple things here.
Okay, good.
I don't know what her model of the world is or her belief system. Does she believe in law of attraction or
not at the no.
So
she's not against it, because conceptually, when I talk like this, she's very open. She's very religious, but she also is very angry with God because God is taking her friend.
Okay, so you can put it in Christian God terms, law of attraction. Yes. It's just saying the same thing.
Yep.
God's always listening, right? The universe is always listening. So here's the question. If she believes in prayer, if God's always listening, right? There's two rules essentially to prayer. You talk, God listens, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking, let me rephrase it. If God is never not listening, when are you not praying or talking to God?
Right. So highlighting actively that she is doing it in prayer.
Right. Never, right? You're never not praying. So if your thoughts, and you can do this as law of attraction, you can do this as prayer. If your thoughts and your visualization is, oh, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to have a miscarriage, the road's going to get pulled, something bad is going to happen. What is that a manifestation for? Or what is that a prayer for?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So like that goes into, if you're thinking about not spilling the milk, well, what's going to happen? You're going to not, right? Like there's many ways to explain that. So it's really a manifestation. Anytime you're picturing the wrong thing happen, it's actually enhancing the probability. It's a manifestation for that thing to happen. That's the first big point. The second thing is, it feels like because those traumas were so intense and there's such a focus on not having bad things happen again, because I don't like when bad things happen. This is bad. This hurts. This is bad. It's all bad. It's just pain.
Yeah.
There needs to be a reframe. And this is a challenging one. Like what's half full about a miscarriage?
Well, she's got a good relationship with it in terms of verbalizing, saying, Theo's here.
And that's good.
Yeah, Theo might not have appeared in this spirit. Like Theo wouldn't be Theo if it went a different route. And then we tapped into further what was going on for her, because I've been asking her, we've not reliving those experiences, but relating to that version of herself at that time to make a positive relationship to it. So what was going on then, it came out that she was like, yeah, I actually knew that it wasn't a good time. Like the first one, it wasn't a good time. Wasn't planned. We didn't have the house. We didn't have all those things. I go, so some part of you on a very cellular was just like, this isn't the right time. So that spirit was like, not right now. So I'm going to go. And then the next one came, and it was the same thing. She goes, I knew at one point, I knew when I had lost it, even before I had lost it, because I could just feel it wasn't right. Something wasn't right. Like it just, and she didn't realize the power of her own intuition until the moment I was asking her. So I was like, what were you doing? What was it feeling like? Where were you at? Like all these things. Cause her anger towards God gave God the power over her, like outside of herself, right? Like deeming where she's going. And I was getting her back into her own power seat and her connection of it, not distancing from God, but going, it's, you actually are an active participant in this, and how are you connected to that? And because it was, whether we're here on earth for a second, a blip, or 5 years, 10 years, 80, whatever, it's a journey, right? In general. I'm like, so those were still little journeys. And then we have Theo. So then all of a sudden she started piecing it together in terms of relationship to journeys, because she has a friend that's passing away from cancer, like actively right now, will be passing away in the next 3 weeks, and just found out, kind of thing, brain tumors. Like, this is another big, and this is somebody who's like a sister to her. She's an only child, and this person is like her sister.
Yeah.
And confidant. So anyways, it's all unfolded, but yeah, I like what you're saying in terms of,
so even when it goes wrong, even when things go wrong, even when trauma happens,
yeah,
it works out for you. There's benefit and value to it.
It's still progressing, and here you are. Yeah. And it's the same thing when we're talking about her job, and I'm like, and here you are, a bunch of people left, and your boss asked you to take on more responsibility and checks in with you, and even said, oh, there she had to say that she was pregnant. Oh, when it's time for you can go home, you can have these amount of days, you can have all, and as she's smiling, I'm going, these people are really leaning into you, so much so that they're like, okay, they want to make sure you're good first and foremost, beyond the job responsibilities. And she's like, yeah, I don't know why I keep thinking I'm going to get fired. Like, it negated all the evidence of what's going on, negated that too.
Yeah.
But,
so it's really challenging like, why would you be mad at God when he was really looking out for you? Or why would you worry about these things, even though they created some lesson, some growth, some right benefit to you as part of your human journey here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of those are really powerful. And I don't think she's going to hear all of them, because there's an underlying, I am not safe. Yes. She's saying over and over and over again,
yes,
I am
yes,
not
yes.
Well, yeah, and that's what the reframe will like, even when things went wrong. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And all it is doing is piggybacking off of the reframe point, but addressing this is what I brought up in the last maybe it was 2 conversations ago, the whole like stoic idea of worst case scenario. Okay, so then you have another miscarriage. Let's look at it. Then what? Like, what does that feel like? Like, sad. Okay, like, are you still moving on? Can you not live with yourself? Like, if you lose your job, okay, let's just face it, because she seems, especially, it's pretty interesting, her dad moving to new places all the time. If you look at generational trauma, like, obviously he's part of this chain of pain as well.
100%. Yes.
Moving to these different locations to make it better, because he's running from this current situation, and he's not safe there, so he moves here. So he's not safe here, he moves here. He's not safe here, he moves here. Like, this I am not safe is such a strong, loud sound that I feel like she's having trouble hearing. Like, yeah, I know, yeah, positive. Okay, let's focus on positive. Okay, and also, like, you don't get it, guys. I'm not safe. And so, other than addressing, like, okay, you aren't safe, right? Like, let's play into this. Obviously not dwelling on negatives, but like, okay, worst case scenario happens, another miscarriage. How does
validating that reality instead of pushing.
Validating fear, right?
Yeah, because if that fear isn't heard, it's like any emotion. If it's not heard, it will still stay. Like, it still sits, and it's like,
well, it makes sense why she has that program, because of all those data points. Well, look, my dad, and then the miscarriage, and blah blah. So, like, she's gonna justify, how can I feel safe when X, Y, and Z happened?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a different meaning.
But then it's to say, it's like, for me, in our sessions, I have been flipping it where I call it I don't say this out loud to her, but I call it accessing people's personal superpowers in terms of like their X factor, the X-Men factor of, that shit happened and that stuff happened, but it also made you extremely resilient, and your ability and capacity. For her, it's like, I keep calling her the conductor I'm like, you're so on top of it, because I touched base on like the holidays and where things are at for her and like how that's going to look in terms of like stress management and this and that and the other. And I was just like, you are so far ahead in planning. So there's a part of it that looking ahead and planning and everything means that she's in a leadership role. I'm like, you wouldn't be able to conduct and run and be in these positions. I'm like, do you see yourself as a leader? And she goes, now that you're saying it that way, I did it. So it's like understanding again that she's the driver, she's the leader, and all these reinforcements of the things to understand. Because I think, like, to what Dan and you are saying too, Brian, is that there's a big part of her that all these instances had her feel, even her anger towards God, she was not in the driver's seat. All these things happen without her control and are constantly happening. So that's why the one thing that she chooses in pleasure, which is reading or watching a movie, she has to control it by understanding the end of it, because she feels like she has it. But then when we flip the script and we give her highlights of how much she actually is in control and how much she is a leader and how much of her is being relied on by others and leaned on by, others, it changes her perspective from being so inwardly and feeling that victim of her experience to being, I'm actually an active participant / I'm kind of a badass leader. And she'll sit there, like her whole face changes and she's like, well, when you say it like that, it's like completely a new way. But I think in a whole underlying thing of her understanding her active role in her driver, in her, like, and I always anchor her in her driver. Like, I want her to be in that.
Finding safety in herself, I think, is what, Dan, you're getting at too.
Yes. But again, if she doesn't feel safe in herself, it's really hard to drive a car that you feel like is going to break down. Yeah.
But also, and this is like the dichotomy of it. It's like also understanding that you don't know if it's going to break down or not.
Right.
You can do all of the things, and that's all you can do, though.
Yeah.
And then there is an uncertainty that is just part of reality.
Yeah.
And every time she's made it through and she is where she is and she got lessons and growth and all the things that, because
exactly. Then that's where that reframe comes in, for sure.
Yeah.
Here's the half full of all of these things.
Yeah. Miscarriage is a tough one, man.
Well, because, and that was like our first few sessions was her allowing herself space to grieve on that. Like allowing. She never got a chance to. She goes, yeah, I just pushed it down. She's like, that's why I called you. Like, my husband wanted me to call you because and they were trying, they wanted another one. And it just so happened that they conceived right at the start of our package sessions.
It was a soul agreement between her and that soul that,
yeah,
hey, if you're not ready, I'll wait.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's Leo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kept coming back. Are you ready yet?
Yeah.
Are you ready yet?
Yeah. 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 I want to recommend her to watch the movie Soul. Have you guys seen that? It's so good.
No.
Oh, you have to see it. Well, have you seen it, Dan? With your kids?
Soul?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a little young when we watched it, but I think Everest now, if he watched it again, he'd really get more out of it.
Yeah, there's Soul, and then why can't I think of the other one? The Emotions one.
Yeah, Inside Out.
Thank you. That is also another one that I tell and I will recommend to clients, whether you have kids or not, watch it. Talk about emotional intelligence and understanding memories and how they,
And there's even the subtlety of like who was in the driver's seat. You see like sadness is in the driver's seat of the mother, and then like anger's in the driver's seat. Like you just see like what emotion is sitting there, and it's like, oh, this is the person's way of being. This is where they're emanating everything from.
Yeah. And that it's a huge control panel and they're all like doing it, but then like anger always like wipes everybody out and starts going with this huge button. I love when the dad's like, because he's like saying, no, you're going to listen to me. They're at the dinner table and you can just see anger go, that's it, I'm going to blow. It's just such a good thing to understand. But I think for us and like what we talk about, these two movies are fun, playful illustrations of concepts that we're discussing in terms of what people experience. because it's more than just like an actual event that's happening, a memory.
Right.
There's so much that goes into it and how our body responds and everything. So, but in terms of like soul, understanding where how spirits come and go, the way you were talking about, like, oh, here's another one saying maybe this is my opportunity to come, and who knows, just breaks it out. So yeah, this is a good one. So the stuff that you've been bringing to the table, I appreciate you for your insight.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's a good one. It's interesting. Same pattern kind of, as a client asked me that, how do I feel good about when I intend something to happen and it goes wrong, like, or something like that. Anywho,
Yeah.
I'm going to get to yoga. I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, the sun's coming out, and I have a client that I'm meeting with briefly. So
okay. I wanted to ask just real quick how Bark is going. Are you getting good leads? And because I was interested in checking it out, I wanted to hear.
Yeah, but I have to get more firm in my filter process and just not click happy in terms of accepting anybody. So my rule of that I'm doing now is looking at people who are only looking for coaches and have a specific quote, because some they don't write what their reasonings for, and then looking at that specific quote, and then I'll purchase the points, because you have to purchase it like through point for them. So I'm just fine tuning my selection process of who, because the last 2 people I've talked to on the phone were not what I call decisive action clients. Every client I have now that I'm working with is decisive action, but the 2 that I did, and they were coincidentally ones who did not say anything and were kind of like, I kind of want to, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's just weeding it out. I think you get used to it, but I wouldn't just like take your first 3 that show up. You pick through, and they throw a lot at you. So I've got 150 that I have to filter through right now.
Yeah, I tried a similar company before and didn't have much luck. So I was curious how that was going. So yeah, I might give it a try.
Yeah, I'm changing my approach to it because I'm getting interaction, which is great. So that's a good sign. I want to fine tune it to the interactions that are going to lead me more towards success. So I have to not just take whatever. I have to look specifically for the clients who are very specific of what they're wanting to work on. And you can get indication too on people financially, like based on their wording. I would try it out just for fun, just to see, because I'm having fun in that filter process right now.
Cool.
That's interesting. Yeah.
All right.
I encourage it though. Do it. Try it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Another good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.